Hi all, this is Module 3 and the topic which we are going to discuss is FAD. The learning objective is to introduce the concepts associated with the term FAD. The course outcomes are analyze the meaning of FAD, identify various FADs. Introduction. A fad is something which can either make a designer's life more interesting or tenser. Very often, something appears on the fashion scene that captures the imagination only to fizzle out in short duration. Meaning of fad. Fad can be defined as short-lived fashion, lasting for a very little time or period, and acceptable by only a certain group of people. A fad becomes popular fast and dies out quickly. The best example of fad could be hippies, their clothing, accessories, and hairstyles, which are very short lived. As fad is short lived fashion, it stays for a very short period because they are very costly and everyone cannot afford to buy it. The example is dhoti salwar and tube shirts. Fad. A fashion expert is one who is keen in selection for the consumers, selecting what is more likely to be accepted, going overboard for short-lived fashion. Fad can be costly. Fads are objects or activities that are popular with a group of people over a short period of time. The fad has the shortest life cycle. It is typically a style that is adopted by a particular subculture or younger demographic group for a short period of time. It attracts only a limited following who are searching for excitement or want to distinguish themselves from others. They don't satisfy a strong need. The marketing winners are those who recognize fads early and leverage them into products with staying power. It has no social, political, and economic influence. Now let us look into the difference between fashion and fad. Fashion is ever present, it might evolve or adapt, but it is always there. Whereas a fad, on the other hand, fades away quickly. Fashion is followed by many selected people in the society. It might be shown by the people related to movies or television or fashion world. But a fad is followed by a huge portion of the society. Everybody and anybody follows fad. Fashion is basically related with clothes, accessories, footwear, makeup, and hairstyles, whereas a fad can be clothes, music, behavior, food, and even dance movements. Fashion depends upon the society, how the society has evolved, which industries have developed in the past years and developing in the future, what the changing lifestyle of people are demanding, comfort, and weather. A fad is just a type of fashion for a very short time. This image shows the difference between style, fashion, and fad. As you can see that fad is a short-lived fashion when compared to a fashion or a style. Here comes the message from Ince de la Fressange. Nothing ages a woman more than adopting every passing fad.
What are the characteristics of a fad, and what's the difference between a fad and a trend? These are the questions we're going to consider together this afternoon. Well, the main difference, I think, between a fad and a trend concerns time. A fad is something that seems to appear suddenly. It quickly becomes enormously popular, then disappears just as suddenly as it came. A trend also appears rather suddenly, and it also becomes very popular, but it doesn't disappear. A trend can have a long-term influence on its particular market. Fads and trends often resemble each other at first glance, but a fad usually has a definite beginning and end. Pokemon might be a fad, but the idea of fancy playing cards for children might be a trend, for example. Another difference is that fads usually stay within one industry. Trends can cross over into many industries. The hula hoop, for instance, has been called the greatest fad of all time. 25 million. In the late 1950s, 25 million hula hoops were sold in just 4 months. But a year later, sales had virtually stopped. The hula hoop was a toy. It was fun to play with, but that's about all. Now consider cell phones. They were designed to be portable telephones, but they crossed over into the worlds of fashion, wireless communication, and now even photography. People buy cell phones that match the latest clothes fashions. They use cell phones for wireless internet access. They take photos with them. Cell phones have become a trend. Here's the third difference between fads and trends: how well industries accept them. Fads are often promoted by smaller companies. They need the quick money that fads provide. Large companies don't accept fads right away. They can't afford to be wrong. If a company is known as a trendsetter and it promotes a fad, its reputation will be damaged. Large companies buy products in huge numbers. They don't want unsold products sitting on their shelves. So they wait to see if a fad becomes a trend. Then they will accept it in their stores. Now, yes.
How long does a fad have to last before it becomes a trend? I mean, there are all these energy drinks now. There used to be only a couple, but now there's like 100. Are they still a fad? Exercise is a trend, so wouldn't energy drinks be part of the exercise trend?
That's an excellent question. When exactly does a fad become a trend? You know, there are some people who are paid a lot of money to answer that question. If they get it right, companies become rich and famous. If they get it wrong, companies go bankrupt and careers get ruined. The short answer is nobody knows. Distinguishing between fads and trends is an art, not a science. If it were easy, there would be a lot more rich people in the world. Yes, in the back.
Yeah, can people get rich from fads too? You said they sold 25 million hula hoops in 4 months. Someone must have made big money off that.
Yes, they did. Toy companies made $45 million off of hula hoops by the time the fad ended. And maybe some of you have heard of pet rocks in the 1970s. A man bought a rock for a penny, put it in a gift box, and marketed it as a pet. He became an instant millionaire. But the trouble with fads is no one can predict them. This man had no idea that so many people would buy rocks as pets. He started it as kind of a joke.
Summary. We have started with the introduction of fad, learnt about the meaning of fad, examples of fad, and difference between fashion and fad. Conclusion. Fad is the fashion that is popular for a short time. It can include colors, jewelry, shoes, etc. It tends to be less expensive, and few examples are 1950s plastic necklace, cinch belts, 1960s go-go boots, 1970s hot pants and leisure suits, 1980s fluorescent socks. The next module would be dealt on the terms classic and collection. The assignment for Module 3 is collect images for any two fads, write about the origin decline of the fad in about 15 lines. Thank you all for listening.